Let me ask you a question that most collectors never stop to consider. When did your collection stop being a hobby and become wealth? For many collectors, that moment has already happened. But the truth is, most people never recognize it, because collections rarely become valuable overnight. They evolve quietly, over years, sometimes decades. And one day you look around and realize that what started as passion has turned into something much bigger. Most collectors remember the beginning. Maybe it was opening packs of cards at the kitchen table as a kid. Maybe it was the first watch you saved up to buy, the one that felt like a milestone. Maybe it was a piece of memorabilia tied to a team or athlete that meant something to you personally. At that moment, it wasn't about value. It was about connection. The connection to history, to sport, to craftsmanship. Collecting starts emotionally, but over time something interesting happens. Value begins to build. A card you bought years ago for $200 becomes worth $2,000. A watch you bought because you love the design starts trading well above retail. A piece of memorabilia connected to a historic moment suddenly becomes part of sports history. The market begins to recognize what collectors already knew, that certain items matter. And slowly, quietly, what you've built begins to carry financial weight. A collection that might represent tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes hundreds of thousands. In some cases, even millions. But here's the surprising part. Most collectors still think about their collections the same way they did when they started, as a hobby. I recently spoke with a collector who experienced exactly this shift. For years, he collected hockey cards. Nothing flashy at first. Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid. Some emerging stars he believed would matter years down the road. He wasn't flipping cards or chasing hype. He was simply collecting with conviction. One day, he decided to catalog everything he owned. When he added up the values, he realized something surprising. His collection was worth more than $500,000. $500,000! What started as a hobby had quietly become a serious financial asset. And yet he had never thought about it that way before. The reason stories like this are becoming more common is because the collectibles market itself has changed dramatically. Sports cards are now selling for millions. Luxury watches trade globally like commodities. Historic memorabilia is being acquired by museums and private collectors as cultural artifacts. Collectibles are no longer just nostalgia. They're an alternative asset class. And increasingly, they're being recognized as a form of portable wealth. At some point, every serious collector experiences a shift in thinking. Early on, collecting is about excitement, the thrill of the hunt, the joy of discovery. But eventually, collectors start asking different questions. Is this piece rare? Does it represent an important moment? Will it still matter 20 or 30 years from now? When collectors start asking those questions, something important happens. They stop accumulating. And they start curating. That's when a collection begins to take on real significance. But with that significance comes responsibility. Because once a collection reaches a certain level of value, protecting it becomes just as important as building it. Think about the time involved, the years spent searching for the right pieces, the patience required to find items that truly belong in the collection, the stories behind each piece. When something like that is lost, it isn't just financial, it's personal. Collectors don't just lose objects, they lose history. That's why I often say something that surprises people. Collectors are not just owners, they're stewards. Every collectible existed before it arrived in your hands, and in many cases, it will continue to exist long after you're gone. Your role is to protect it, preserve it, and pass it forward in the best possible condition. So here's the question I want you to think about. Has the day already happened? The day your collection became wealth? Because if it has, then the way you think about your collection needs to evolve as well. Not just as a passion, but as something meaningful, something valuable, something worth protecting. Collect with passion, curate with intention. And remember, if something matters enough to collect, it matters enough to protect. I'm Enzo, and this is the Private Collection Podcast. Protect what you collect.